Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Flame. This time, me and Ed will be talking all about downtime. Hello, Ed. How are you?
Hello, Mr. Toombs. All is well.
Good.
How's your side of the pond doing?
It's not as sunny as it was last time we spoke.
No.
It has literally gone miserable within I don't know, a few days. So we're back to England's weather, which is great.
It's I guess your standard.
But it's good. We are heading toward. I'm glad I'm not going to timestamp this, but we're heading towards the end of a week. So it's always good here. What about you?
All's good, man. Just happy to be here. Today's episode is sponsored by the Stellar Hog out of St. Louis, Missouri. So if you guys haven't noticed yet, every time Dan and I do one of these segments, I'm wearing a different barbecue shirt from a different place I've been to. So now you guys will
bring in that barbecue. Amazing. Yes, so welcome everyone. As mentioned, we are talking about cooking without crashes today. So how do we decrease that downtime? Incidences and crashes and whatever we do, they are always going to happen. That is part of life. But simply we are trying to make sure that we are as prepared as possible so that those periods are as short as possible. That is today's episode. So, Ed, in your experience, kind of like what have you seen in terms of downtime? Is there a particular moment in history that kind of sticks out to you?
We've all been there. We've all had, some kind of situation that's happened, whether it's an internal incident or an external customer's incident, where the bottom of your stomach just falls out because something's down, and then you got to scramble to try to get it figured out and fixed. And it's the worst feeling. And a lot of times of what I've seen here, especially lately. So, and it's funny, this happens every time. And it's like, sometimes it's like we almost don't learn from our mistakes sometimes, but like recent incidents, like the CrowdStrike incident, that happened and that took the airline industry down. So I guarantee you, like after that incident occurred, every large enterprise company was like, "Oh crap, let's go take a look at our resiliency testing. Let's go take a look at our downtime processes." It's kind of like from a reactionary perspective instead of staying on top of it. Like, okay, now let's see what we can do proactively to say, hey, what are we doing to make sure we mitigate any downtimes, kind of thing. So it's like, how do we get ahead of that?
Absolutely. I mean, the PIRs are so helpful. Well, they should be that helpful. If you ran them, a good mature PIRs are without emotion. They are objective. We have to remove. It's good to have a level of subjectivity, but what you don't want it to do is become like, oh, Ed was touching that, like that's his fault, and because that's not useful to how to learn and how to mature and how to improve for the future. So by maintaining that objectivity is always going to be good.
Yeah, and it's the enterprise companies or any company that can be impacted from a service incident and downtime just needs to kind of incorporate into their process of a continuous, what was it back in the day? Continuous quality improvement, CQI. So now this can be like a continuous, response improvement kind of thing. So how are we always, it's fine. We can document our process and we can say, this is how we're going to do it. And this is our run book. If something happens, but how can we do something that's more proactive? Like, do we have monthly checks on documentation? Is it updated? Are our systems up to date? Do our notification pathways clear, kind of thing? So can we keep in front of that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I think it's true. I think the pre aspect is how how prepared can be. If you imagine kind of the agile loop, we always come back around to the beginning, but a true beginning. The events and alerts, have you got your systems actually telling you when CPU is running extremely high for several minutes? Have you got notifications that your RAM is basically gone or your database is full or whatever it might be? Those are just some very, very basic metrics, but the point is that have you got the right alerts to notify you when things are starting to head towards an incident. And that's always a good starting point.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned this when we were talking before the show. What do you think about doing these? What do we call them? Proactive incidences, or
The chaos monkeys.
yeah, the chaos monkeys, where you throw a wrench in there to make sure your team's ready for it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I really like. So I heard about this. Oh God, it got to be 5 years ago. It was kind of when Netflix. I know Netflix is still booming, but it was when it was really kind of taking off.
Yeah.
And they were talking about, how did they make sure that their incident process is always ready? And the simple answer is they I don't know whether they invented or they just used, but it was how I heard of it, which is they basically have this chaos monkey, which literally randomly takes down a service. That's his job. It just will be like, screw it, let's take down this database.
This database is down. Yeah,
I'm going to take it down. And the whole point of that is it makes sure that teams are fully aware of the actual process rather than just testing an incident process once a year. It makes sure that they have built in proper resiliency. So have they got failovers? Are they active? Are they active passive failovers? Or do they have any failovers at all? Is it that kind of required service? Are you also thinking to the level of, oh my God, the chaos monkey deleted everything? Do we even have a backup? Like what's that process there involved as well? Or can we even predict that the chaos monkey is going to start destroying the CPU usage? Like, have we got the alerts to say like things are building here? And I think it's a really clever thing. I think that there is a cultural element to this, which is not every company may be ready to put that in.
Correct.
But God, do I reckon it works?
Or maybe different flavors of it or different levels of it. Maybe maybe we're not simulating or taking down a complete system area, or maybe we're simulating it, kind of thing. So, but again, to that point, I think it's kind of cool because it starts to build that resiliency muscle that you hope you don't have to use, but it's there and it's ready to go.
Yeah, it's the insurance of the IT world, which is that you need it. You really hope you never have to use it, but you need it. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really clever. I think anything we can do, it sounds weird, but actually the more, again, it's similar with migrations, and I know we'll come on to that in future episodes, but the whole point of like, the more pre-work we can do, the more alerts we put in place, the more testing of our processes, the more aware and kind of ready our teams are, that has a massive effect into how our incidences will run in the first place. But obviously that's so what do you think about like during an incident? What are the kind of things that you could expect to do to help decrease that downtime?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the first things that comes to mind is obviously communication. So an incident occurs, we need to communicate to the impacted people, whether that's internal or external customers, that there's an incident, be transparent that we're working on it, and then make sure that the appropriate team members are involved and actively working on that incident. So, communication immediately is probably one of the most critical items, I would say, that kicks it off.
Yeah. And while this might not directly affect your incident itself or the downtime period, we certainly know that it can take a decade or two or more to build a solid reputation, but a very bad incident can merely ruin that in minutes.
Yep.
And we have seen in our own ecosystem, and we've experienced some of those in the last 5 years. So let's wind back the clock even more, and how many other opportunities are there that this could have happened? So I do think communication is a massive thing, because the more you build an expectation, the better received you'll be.
Yeah, and it's communication, and then what are the different roles that need to be engaged within addressing the situation. So is a war room spun up, or a swarm room, and then do we have the central point of command person that is kind of running the point of communications between those impacted plus those that are working on it? How do we balance that out and make sure that we're fully transparent? Because like you said, you try to sweep something under the rug, whether it's temporarily or hopefully not, purposely, that will take your credibility and your the trustworthiness down.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one that you mentioned literally just then, the swarm room or any sort of kind of idea, that those major incident moments, how quickly are you to recognize that this is not a solo but a multiple incident kind of activity? I think that's how quick can we recognize that? So effective triage, we've covered this in other episodes. Like, are your L1s like key to spot those, or have you got those even automated, which is that's down, we're bypassing everything right now, we're just going straight to major incident because we know that's the case. So I think that's really key, is how quickly can you recognize that. Have you also, to a level actually, and this is where Compass will, I think, comes in quite nicely, which is if you have a service, do you know the right team that looks after it? How quickly can you get that team involved? Where's their on-call schedule? What are all those little factors? So I think having a good service directory can help massively. Or again, when you start talking about automation, can you instantly tell them that something has gone wrong and bypass that factor as well?
Yeah. And we obviously deal a lot within the Atlassian application stack. And so, implementing some of these workflows and automations can really help you get a handle on the situation and address it as quickly as possible. So whether that's, Ops Genie is alerting that there's a service down, which automatically creates a ticket in JSM, which has a workflow that looks at certain fields like priority or other fields that can automatically move it to an escalated status based on the severity of the incident. And then based on that severity, notifications can go out, and you can actually automatically spin up a Slack war room if you needed to. So all that is kind of, designed, to help you efficiently start addressing that downtime situation.
Absolutely. I think that more, what you don't want to do is go to a fully, I don't think this makes sense. And I'm a massive fan and a big advocate for automation. I think it is a necessity to being productive and efficient. But there are still times where actually it doesn't make sense. And that will be different for every company and depending on the processes at hand. But wherever you can automate to remove the over-reliance on an individual, to at the start of an incident, the last thing you want your major incident manager doing is doing about 15 very manual tasks. You want them focusing on making sure that they understand the incident, that they already know the right team to bring into this, that they've already seen the alerts or whatever it might be. You don't want them saying, okay, I'll go, like you said, go click a Slack channel and get the name right and invite the people. You don't want to then get them spending time sending we've just noticed this is down, we're just letting you know. The system can take care of that for them, so that you're increasing the efficiency because they're already 15 steps ahead. They're not starting at step one.
And to your point there, we're not going to send a canned response to a customer that's down because they can, they'll see that automatically. It's going to be the incident manager is going to be on the phone with them or whatever, communication channel we have to, help alleviate the situation, not send an AI generated canned response to hopefully,
Good point. No, I think that's true. So we've kind of understood very, very quickly that, that there's a lot of pre-work that we can do as a business to making sure that we're being efficient. We've checked off that we have all the right alerts and detection points in place. We have ran several tests and simulations. Now that an actual incident has come up, we've discussed about making sure that we know the right team to get involved because we have a good service directory. We know that we've automated some of the process so the MIM is focusing in the right area. But the big thing I think always, and we touched on this right at the beginning, which is the learnings, the outcomes. What can we do to improve for the next time? So what would you suggest is the first kind of place to go in your post-incident phase?
Oh man, and this may perhaps be the most important part of the whole downtime incident management process, is this post-incident learning. So what have we learned? Have we seen this incident before? Is it a repeat incident? If it's not, we obviously want to get the postmortem on what happened and what we did to fix it. But more importantly, we want to make sure, we're not throwing anyone under the bus when this happens, because it's going to happen, and then, if you get into the pointing of fingers and blame game, it's not going to help anyone learn or, make you a better organization from a cultural aspect. So, we get that post-mortem, we figure out what happened. Does that lead into improving documentation? Does it lead into, implementing some more of these chaos monkeys like we talked about earlier to make sure we don't hit this again, kind of thing? So, just getting all those lessons learned down, documented, and implemented. Super important.
So I have seen, this was slightly more rare. I think it shows the level of maturity that this particular business was at. But I was doing some consultancy on site, and again, as always, an incident happened while I was there, and I watched them deal with it from the sidelines. I just stood back. They were very efficient. They had their automations in place already, which was this particular AWS EC2 was basically running really high. They just killed it off, restarted it, and it didn't come back up. They tried a bunch of manual things. Eventually, they got it back up. But the moment that happened, and this was pre-COVID, so everyone was in the office, but they literally everyone got up, walked to a room, they locked the door, and they spoke about it. And they were very honest. Rather than wait 20, 30, 50 hours sometimes, all the way, sometimes those PIRs just diaries don't line up. And
it's in your mind. It's right there. Let's go ahead.
Exactly. They got the service up. They made sure it stayed up. They all literally stood up and walked to a room, sat down, and they started right from the beginning. They understood the incident timeline. They said, this was the first time that we detected the issue. These were the first 5 tickets we had from customers. This is how quickly they were triaged. Like, we spotted the trend, we passed that to a MIM. And they had everything written down on a whiteboard. Just here's these objectives. These are everything. Here's a timestamp against them. And then the learnings came from, well, could we have spotted that earlier? No, we had the right alerts in place. But what we didn't do is teach our L1s the right level of knowledge. They could have gone ahead and done this, right? So by having it very clearly written out, knowing your timeline, knowing, like, being objective and removing kind of somewhat of the emotion and the heart, you're able to find the problem a little bit quicker.
Yeah. And then, kind of on top of that, as far as the post-incident learning, there's probably some high-level metrics that, can be tracked as well. Just from an organizational perspective, like, how long did it take, from the incident happening to it was reported? How long did it take from when it was reported till the issue was identified? How long did it take from reported to resolution, kind of thing? And so, some of those metrics can help feed into your operational process as well, and making your incident management and downtimes, hopefully.
Yeah. I think the MTTR will be the one that most people, mean time to resolve, will probably be the one that most people are familiar with. But mean time to detection is, again, just as a good metric. And the way to know that you're decreasing your downtime is to be able to calculate those types of metrics. It took us an hour to kick off the process. Now it kicks off within 10 minutes. That's a massive improvement, right? So being able to spot those over time means that you are doing better. I do think that a huge part of this, and this will be a problem for different companies of different sizes, but it's a culture. You have to have a culture that is ready to learn and ready to do the inspection, the adaptation, and hold accountability to themselves.
And understand a culture that understands that mistakes are going to happen, issues are going to happen, but it's how we deal with those and learn from those that improves the culture. So, spot on that. Yeah,
absolutely.
So from a high level, we've we've talked about, how do we decrease that downtime, knowing incidents are going to happen. So we kind of put it into three categories: the pre-incident. So what do you have in place, and are you continuing monitoring in place to help you get a hold of or in front of incidents instead of being very reactive to them? During the incidents, the communications and the response times and the transparency, getting the incident resolved. And then on the post side, what have we learned, and how can we make ourselves better as an organization and learn from that, and then keep that ingrained into the culture?
Yeah, I think that's a massive aspect. But the final thing in that post thing you just said is the feedback loop. How do you take it from we're at the end of this, now we need to pull that back into there? How are you tracking those things? Now, in our world, it would probably be a Jira ticket. Make sure that you're actually passing this feedback on, make sure it is properly prioritized and is placed into someone's backlog. And we're not just making these, we should go and do actions.
Right.
Follow those actions through, because that ultimately is what you're going to improve against.
Absolutely.
Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ed. That was a lovely episode. I love talking to you as always. But until the next one, I hope you all have a great day.
All the best.